Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the BYU Cougars. I'm your BYU insider, Mitch Harper with KSLSports.com. We're 3 days away until BYU hosts the Stanford Cardinal. First time Stanford rolls into Provo since 2003. That was a long time ago, 22 years in fact, and let's dive into this matchup a little bit further in our top story.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
3 years ago when these two programs last met, it was FBS independent BYU versus Pac-12 Stanford. Now in 2025, after the crazy realignment that we experienced in recent years in college football, it's Big 12 BYU versus ACC Stanford. Huh? Remember that TikTok trend that just makes sense when they did the hand thing? BYU in the Big 12, that just makes sense to me. Maybe it's just because BYU fans have always talked about being in the Big 12, that it was the conference that they were always following for years. Whereas Stanford in the ACC, that just doesn't make sense. It makes no sense at all. It never will. Them and Cal Berkeley in the ACC never will add up. SMU, I think that's a great fit. I think SMU and the ACC, that makes sense. Stanford and Cal, no. I think they'd be better served, honestly, going to the Pac-12 again. I know that's group of six, but that's neither here nor there. Stanford and BYU is Power 4 versus Power 4. The Big 12 programs are required to play at least one power conference opponent in the non-conference, and this is the matchup that BYU gets in 2025. Originally, this game was going to be 2031, but some schedule movements and moving things around logistically, Tom Holmoe got this game moved up to the 2025 season before he retired. And these Power 4 matchups are always critical for the image of the conference. And even though Stanford's a huge underdog, defensive coordinator Jay Hill sees the significance in this sort of matchup.
A huge deal and everything. This has playoff implications. This has, our conference and who we are. Like a good example of that is TCU last night. Looked so good against North Carolina. That's big for our conference. And we have an opportunity against another conference this game, and we need to go out and look good. And as far as just the team goes, we need mojo. We need to continue to keep the hype going, and we need to take care of business.
That laugh in the background. They do need mojo still. BYU just outside the AP Top 25 poll. The pollsters were not impressed with 69-0. They weren't as impressed as Bruce Barnum from Portland State. So maybe they need to just lay the hammer down on Stanford, and that can get the pollsters to be impressed. I mean, they've kind of set the expectation, right? Utah hammered a bad Big Ten team in UCLA. BYU go hammer a bad ACC team. You should catapult into the rankings. Now, BYU's just one spot away, and Utah was only 2 spots out. It wasn't like it was a massive jump into the AP Top 25, but still, games against FCS teams, as we talked about last week, do no good for these teams. And Power 4 opportunities, however, as Jay Hill said, they're a big deal. And maybe there's not playoff implications on the line for Stanford. For BYU, a team that was 11-2 and feeling really good after what was a flawless week 1, they're dreaming big. And they got to be dialed in, though, for this matchup because Stanford, they do have some athletes, individual talent. I think the collective roster for Stanford has really taken a step back in the last 5 to 6 years. It really has taken a dip, and there's been a lack of stability at the head coach position, and they lost David Shaw, who was sliding backwards at the tail end anyway, and then Troy Taylor, and now Frank Reich is the interim. Andrew Luck, the general manager, he'll get it going again. I really do believe that. It kind of ties into what I was talking about a few weeks ago, how I do believe in alums being connected to a university can get the most out of a program. Kalani's done that at BYU. I think Andrew Luck will do that with Stanford, but still BYU is a massive favorite. And I was, interested to see BYU's an 18.5-point favorite against the Cardinal. It's not very often that BYU is a double-digit favorite over a power conference team. It's only the fifth time this has happened since 1998. And I point to 1998 is when the BCS distinction took place, non-BCS, power conference, things like that. It's only happened 5 times. And BYU has a great record in those spots, but there's been some close games. Last year, Houston was a game where BYU was favored by 11.5. They only won by 12. And that set third quarter, after BYU got eliminated from the Big 12 championship game, it was a little bit of, hey, BYU, you going to wake up and win this football game? So BYU's got to be dialed in for this one. They cannot take Stanford lightly because this is a physical football team, and I get the sense that players and coaches really understand that and are hitting that message home. I don't sense any complacency of, they've arrived after blowing the doors off a bad FCS team. BYU's going to come into this game pretty prepared for the Cardinal, and that's why they're 2.5 touchdown favorite. And I think, they got a great chance of covering that line. I was looking at the history of BYU versus ACC teams, and there's not many matchups between BYU and the ACC. Now, granted, second consecutive year in the non-conference. In week 2, they face an ACC team, but these are some of the new ACC newcomers. And keep in mind, this record against ACC teams only includes matchups when those universities were part of the ACC. BYU played 2 games against Miami in 1988, and then that memorable historic game that had so much mystique in 1990 against the number 1 Hurricanes. That was when Miami was an independent. They were not a member of the ACC until 2005. So only counted games against universities in the ACC when they were part of that conference. BYU has a record of 7-10 against ACC programs, 3-3 against Virginia. That's the most matchups, and the most recent being in 2021 when BYU scored 66 points on Bronco Mendenhall's Virginia Cavaliers at the time. BYU was 3-1 against Georgia Tech, 0-4 against Florida State. BYU's first matchup with the Seminoles coincided with Florida State's first year in the ACC in 1991 in the Kickoff Classic in Disneyland. 0-2 against Boston College. They won that game in 85 in the Kickoff Classic, but Boston College was not a member of the ACC back then. They played Boston College in 2005 and 2006. That was the first 2 years BC was in the ACC. And then last year, SMU 1-0. So BYU will look to improve its mark all time against ACC teams with Stanford, which again, it doesn't make sense that Stanford is in the ACC, but it works out. And BYU gave them the chance to move up a game. Tom Homo always had that connection to the Bay Area schools through San Francisco 49ers, Bill Walsh. There was always a respect for Stanford, even though the two universities have nothing in common. Nothing in common, honestly. Like, is there anything that these two are similar in? I don't know. Maybe there is. But still, I think this is going to be a really fun matchup. And I feel pretty confident, too, that BYU's band will probably not poke fun at Stanford's band, I would assume, as BYU's experienced the last 2 times they went to the Farm. Let's take a break. We'll get more Cougar Tracks coming up on the other side here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks. So we talked about BYU getting ready for the Stanford Cardinal in segment 1. Some future scheduling news officially announced by BYU. On Wednesday, BYU will take on Oregon State in Las Vegas in 2028. Brian Santiago said, quote, "We are excited to be in Las Vegas for the 2028 Vegas Kickoff Classic to face a quality opponent in Oregon State. ESPN and the Vegas Kickoff Classic team are valued partners of ours, and we are grateful for long-standing relationships with them. We know Cougar Nation shows up in Vegas. We can't wait for another great game in a great environment," end quote. That was Brian Santiago on the announcement of Oregon State in 2028 in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. I'm okay with this. I think this is an all right scheduling agreement. Here's the thing that I like about it. So BYU's already got a power conference opponent on its non-conference schedule for 2028. That's against Boston College in Provo. If the Big 12 continues to follow the model of what they're currently doing, which is 5 home games for BYU in the even years, 4 home games in the odd years, 2028 would mean BYU would have 5 Big 12 games. The schedule matrix for the Big 12 only goes through 2027, so we don't know the exact opponents yet for 2028. However, if it does follow that same cadence, you got 5 Big 12 home games. You've got 1 Boston College home game in Provo. Add another G6 to Provo, you could get to 7. And then Oregon State and Vegas, yeah, that's going to be a pro BYU crowd. And Oregon State's always got the ability to be pretty solid. I think the Pac-12 is going to be the best group of 6 league every single year. The group of 5, group of 6 has been rated. And now they kind of bring the best of what's left into the Pac-12. And there's still a few teams out there like a Memphis and the American, but I think the Pac-12 is consistently going to be the best of that next group of leagues. So Oregon State, I think that's a solid matchup, and BYU will probably outnumber Oregon State significantly. So that's basically a glorified home game. I remember that 2021 Arizona game. BYU filled that place up. They would have done the same thing for Notre Dame, but they just had no access to tickets in 2022. So I'm okay with this. I'd be curious to see what the payout structure is with ESPN events, but just on the surface, in theory, if, again, the Big 12 gives BYU 5 home games in 2028, you could be looking at, in essence, 8 games at home. I like that. Again, don't schedule an FCS. Get another group of 6 team into Provo. I don't need another BYU Portland State game, but I think that scheduling agreement's okay. BYU and Oregon State in Las Vegas in 2028. Also, some other newsy items. Buc-ee's. Yes, Buc-ee's is coming to Utah. It's coming to Springville. 1400 North, 2600 West. There's a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that Buc-ee's is going to be coming to Springville. How about that? And I was looking at that address, the distance to LaVell Edwards Stadium. That's only 5.8 miles away. Then I had to hit up ChatGPT, said distance from Big 12 football stadiums to the closest Buc-ee's. 5.8 miles away for BYU, LaVell Edwards Stadium to a Buc-ee's would be the closest distance from a Big 12 stadium to a Buc-ee's. Even closer than Houston, TCU, Baylor, all those Texas teams, Texas Tech, than them to a Buc-ee's. The closest Big 12 stadium to a Buc-ee's, rather, is Houston. They're near about 10 miles away currently in Pearland, Texas. TCU, a Fort Worth location, 21 miles away. Baylor is 35 miles away, McLean Stadium from Temple, Texas, Buc-ee's location. So I fully expect BYU, their creative team that loves to push out content, I expect a graphic. Like the Auburn graphic a few years back, only SEC program with a Buc-ee's in the city. I expect BYU to say closest Big 12 football stadium to a Buc-ee's. They need to drop that when that becomes official, and that thing's built, that Buc-ee's. But I'm telling you, I'm going to be making a lot of trips to Springville. All those trips I drive down to BYU practice, press conferences, games, things like that. Yes, it's going to involve a lot of trips to Springville. I am a big Buc-ee's fan. I am a Buc-ee's believer. I love that place. So I am hyped. Buc-ee's coming to Utah. Perfect fit. This state is absolutely going to embrace Buc-ee's. I can already picture the opening day lines at Buc-ee's. That is just going to be unreal. I remember when Popeyes came, that was a big thing. In-N-Out was nuts. This is going to be insane. Buc-ee's. And they've got the size to make it work. The only knock I have on Buc-ee's, this is my only critique, and maybe it'll change with a Utah location. Maybe they can get some different licensing. The fountain drink's got to improve. I'm not a big fan of the offshoot, cream soda, cherry this, Buc-ee's brand sodas. No. Give me the Coke Zero. Give me a Mountain Dew Zero, something like that. Give me some Pepsi, some Coke. Like those branded products. I don't want Buc-ee's branded fountain drinks. That's my only critique on Buc-ee's. Other than that, the food is just absolutely awesome. So Buc-ee's coming to Utah. Big deal. And BYU, per ChatGPT, is going to have the closest stadium closest to a Buc-ee's when that thing gets built. 1400 North, 2600 West, I-15 exit in Springville, Utah. Maybe another guy that might partake of some Buc-ee's, some guys in the trenches on BYU's defensive line, and one of those outside edge rushers. I thought he had a really good game against Portland State, like many players on this BYU football team. That was senior outside edge Logan Lutui. Before his Deep Blue interview and segment on the BYU Coaches Show, I had the chance to catch up with Logan Lutui at practice on Tuesday, and this was my conversation with Logan Lutui here on Cougar Tracks. BYU football, week 2, getting ready for the Stanford Cardinal, and joining me now is BYU outside edge Logan Lutui. And Logan, initial thoughts first off on the Stanford Cardinal offense and maybe the challenges they pose going up against Cardinal.
Yeah, looking at their offense this past weekend and today, we know that we're going to be in for a dogfight. They are physical up front. They want to establish their physicality right off the bat, so we're looking forward to that. We have prided ourselves in stopping the run this season, so we're going to be up to the test this season, this game and this week. So that's what we've noticed first and foremost right off the bat when we watch film is they want to get their run game going and they want to get turn it into a battle.
The physicality, though, that kind of feels like you like that. You guys kind of like that game too. I mean, you guys are a physical defense. That was one of the, as Jay Hill noted, one of the cleanest first games that he's ever been a part of. Physicality, you guys embrace that, I assume.
Yeah. We love the game of, I'll just put it here. The first thing that we look for is stopping the run, and that's being physical up front, dominating your one-on-ones, and that's something that's instilled to us each and every day, especially on these Tuesdays, full padded practices. It's as close to live as you'll get during the week before Saturday. So, yeah, we embrace the physicality, and we love it when they turn into a dogfight.
Tuesdays, you guys go full pads. Do you go any other days with full pads?
No, just Tuesdays. Tuesdays is our full padded days, and we call them our bloody Tuesdays. Yeah.
How would you assess what today was like then?
Today was a great bloody Tuesday. The boys were flying around. There was a lot of hitting today, so everybody was up to par with what we wanted. And yeah, there were some mistakes, but we expect that on the first day of the week. Looking for tomorrow to clean it up, and as we continue throughout the week to Saturday to polish up our game plan and our technique for this week.
2 tackles and 1 tackle for loss for you in that win over Portland State. I know individual stats aren't probably the key thing for you, but just individually for yourself, how did you feel? Areas that you wanted to improve? I don't even know if that's something to even ask after a game where there's not much to nitpick, but what are the coaches telling you guys?
They want us to double down on our technique. I think that's what's going to set us apart as we continue on with this season and play better and better opponents, and I think that's what's going to keep us seeing the success that we want to see is doubling down on our technique, making sure we're playing with the right fundamentals, and that's something that I want to continue to look to hone down on. So yeah.
Senior season for you. How are you kind of enjoying maybe this final ride that back in the winter, I don't know did you expect to have this other opportunity in 2025?
Yeah. I'm excited for this season. It's been fun throughout this off season, and to get back in LaVell Edwards Stadium this past weekend, and like that feeling is always it's always insane anytime you walk in there on a Saturday night with the fan base that we have. So it's something that never gets old, and that I'm going to miss when I'm done playing here, but I'm going to enjoy the rest of this season though.
Why the number changed to 7?
There actually isn't really much reason. I just was talking with the equipment manager, and he was telling me some open numbers. I'm like, yeah, I'll go the single digit this year, and this was open, so I just took it.
Oh yeah, I mean, for an outside edge, wearing a single digit, that's pretty crisp. That looks really good.
Yeah, hopefully it makes me look slimmer out there.
Well, Logan, how do you feel like the defensive line after that first game
performed. I mean, you saw Brody Schoonover, Viliami Pua, Keanu Tanavasa, JT. I mean, it was really productive by you guys, along with doubling down on technique. What else can this defensive line show this year?
I think that one was just a good confidence builder because, like you said, Bodie and Vil, they haven't had too many reps this past season. So that was just showing them that we can play. They can play on Saturday nights and be really successful and dominant. And no matter the opponent, the way that we played on Saturday is something that you could be proud of. And as we get into this next week, where we're playing an offense that wants to be physical, it's going to be a good test for us. And I don't think anybody's shying away from that, and we're all looking forward to it.
What can you tell us about your cousin, Ephraim Asiata? He switched over to Sam linebacker. Just maybe how he is as a player. I mean, we saw a glimpse. I mean, he plays with so much violence out there on the field. Yeah. But what he can become now that he's over that Sam linebacker spot.
Yeah, more than just violent. I know Ephraim is one of the smarter players we have on our defense. He's able to grasp concepts pretty easily, and when he gets on the field, he just flips the switch. He just gets that killer mentality, and that's something that you want in all football players. And he's somebody that we know that we can count on to, get the juice going. He's going to be physical every play, and he's just going to be making a lot of plays this season and in his future.
Is there much difference between the Sam and the OE, your spot? And I bring that up because Ephraim kind of switched between those spots.
Mm-hmm. Sam is a lot more of a linebacker position. With the OE, it's a little bit of a hybrid, but more of a defensive end position. So we're on the line more often, not dropping back as much as the Sam. And the Sam linebackers are a little bit quicker and lighter than us, so they play to the field side where they could cover more ground than we would probably not want to be in the position to do. So yeah.
And then last couple things here for you, Logan. Stanford, you brought up the physicality. They like to eat up the clock too. They had some drives, 3 drives last 2 weeks ago against Hawaii where they had more than 10 plays. The importance of getting off on third down.
Yeah, like I said before, the importance of getting on third down starts off with that first and second down. And that starts with stopping the run, keeping them away from those sticks, and forcing them to those third and longs that they're going to have to pass the ball. And that's when we're going to be able to just get off the quarterback, send the packages that we have that will confuse the quarterbacks, and that's what we want on those third downs. And as long as we keep them out of those third and shorts where they aren't just running the ball and chewing up the clock, I think we'll be in a good position.
Last thing, what's your routine for these late night kicks? What do you do at the team hotel?
That's a good one. I usually just be watching football, all the games. We kind of have already a set routine for us where they wake us up, we do some things, and when it starts at 8 o'clock, we come back to the facility and do our walkthroughs here and go back to the hotel. But most of the time, we're just hanging around with our teammates. Just take a nap, talk to family, and then when it gets closer, we just start to dial in and focus up to game day or game time.
Well, Logan, great start to the season. Looking forward to more in your senior campaign, and best of luck this week.
Thank you so much.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on KSLSports.com and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the BYU Cougars. Mitch Harper here with you, and we're getting ready for BYU versus Stanford. Cougs and Cardinal kick off 8:15 Mountain, 7:15 Pacific time on KSL News Radio and ESPN. And joining us now to give an insider look into Stanford is Ben Parker with Cardinal Sports Report, part of On 3 Rivals. And Ben, we followed each other for a long time on X, as we were discussed before we hopped on, but never had a formal interview conversation. So looking forward to getting to know Stanford with you.
Yeah, no, this is going to be great. It's always fun to kind of meet people, I guess, technically not face-to-face, but through Zoom. But yeah, it's great to meet new people and have new conversations. And I can't wait.
This Stanford Cardinal team, 0-1 after week 0, and they had a bye week. What was your assessment, Ben, of how things played out in Hawaii, and can this thing turn around at all under interim coach Frank Reich?
Yeah, the Hawaii game was terrible, particularly the quarterback position. The overall game itself, there was things they could take from it that were positive. Ford rushed for over 100 yards. He had his first career rushing touchdown. That was really good. Running back Cedric Irvin, Cole Tab, they did a good job. Offensive line looked improved. The defensive line actually did really well. Cole Patterson had a really good day, despite the fact that he kind of had a mistake with that TikTok dance that went viral and cost him 15 yards and a long TFL. But there are things that went well overall for the team. But it was just a stark reminder of how important quarterback play is. And 6-year quarterback Ben Gulbranson had a disastrous day. Disastrous enough that a lot of fans are kind of wondering whether or not how long his leash is, or at what point they might switch to quarterback. So I think for Stanford, I think there were a lot of pauses they could take from the game, but they need the quarterback play to step up if they want to have an improved season. And then as far as the Frank Reich piece is, I mean, he's really close to Andrew Luck. He's got a lot of NFL experience. The team, I think, is hopeful that under his leadership for the season, that they can kind of get some of the bad taste out of their mouth from the 2 years they had under Troy Taylor and the end of the Shaw years, and kind of go into this next off season with a little bit of hope and optimism for a brighter future. So,
is there a chance, Ben, that there is a quarterback change at all this week in game potentially? I know that Gulbranson, Dr. Ben's listed atop the depth chart this week, but do you think there's a chance there could be a change potentially in game if it goes south again?
Yeah, it's possible. The Dr. Ben reference, for those that don't know, Gulbranson's planning on going to medical school after after the season, so that's cool. But that's where the Dr. Ben reference comes from. But no, listen, they're not going to. I mean, I tried to get at this during Monday's conference with Reich. He didn't say. I perhaps could have been more direct on the questioning, but I don't think he'd have answered it anyway. That all was standing. I do think there's a possibility, because at the end of the day, they want to win games this year, and if your quarterback really plays bad for a second straight week, I don't know how it cannot be. So no, I think it's certainly possible, but I think their hope certainly, is that Gulbranson rights the ship. And if it were to make a change, I should add this: it would be Elijah Brown. He's in between the depth chart. That's the presumed, no, that's the presumed option that they would roll with.
With some of the struggles at quarterback, does it make it maybe difficult for Cardinal fans to see now on the opposite side is Bear Bachmeier, guy that was there for the spring quarter?
Yeah, no, certainly. Some of my subscribers have mentioned that if they were to lose to BYU on Saturday with Bear Bachmeier opposite, particularly if he played well, against them, yeah, that would certainly sting. Yeah, no question about it. I think the other thing is sort of like on the quarterback, this is my feeling, is if you're going to roll with a 6-year veteran guy, like, he really better play well. Otherwise, you might as well at least go with a youth movement and develop somebody. So, but yeah, it would sting for sure for them if Bachmeier performed well against them.
This is hard to probably forecast because, I mean, it's a hypothetical, but do you think Bear would have won that job had he stayed at Stanford?
No, and I don't know. I get the sense that the reason that Ben Gulbranson is the starter right now, I'll answer it in two ways. I think that if Bachmeier were still there, Gulbranson would probably still be the starter, just because I think the reason he won the job was because of his experience. He supposedly has done a good job of like leading the offense, showing command in the huddle, those kind of things, making all the appropriate checks and reads and stuff. I mean, it would make sense, right? He's a 6-year quarterback, so you would expect that guy to look better than a true freshman in those areas. But having said that, given the way he has struggled and the fact that there is a possibility for a change, is there a possibility that if Gulbranson were to continue to perform poorly and Bachmeier were still here, that he might be the backup and might be second in line to start? Absolutely, no question about it. So I think going into this week, I think that, Bachmeier would have likely been the backup, but might he have been the number 2 quarterback, or might he have been the guy who would he have gotten an opportunity this season to start? very, very possible. Certainly.
Talking with Ben Parker of Cardinal Sports Report. You can see his bylines at Cardinal Sports Report, part of the On3 Rivals Network. And I'm curious, Ben, will we see Scotty Edwards playing in action? He didn't play in that Hawaii game in week 0, and I bring him up because he's got local ties, Olympus High School, Salt Lake City. He spoke with the media this week, and he's on the depth chart. So are we going to see Scotty Edwards making that homecoming of sorts, going back to BYU?
Yeah, I think we should. First of all, shout out to Olympus High School. My buddy from my buddy Elliot Bullock played basketball there. He ended up playing at Stanford, and then my LDS mission trainer, actually, John Varner, shout out, Olympus High grad. So played football and basketball for them, was really good. So, but back to Edwards. Yeah, I mean, he should play. He spoke to the media yesterday, and my understanding was he was just held out of the Hawaii game kind of for precautionary reasons. So, yeah, he absolutely should be a go. It'd be very, very surprising if he weren't a go, particularly since he spoke to the media yesterday. They don't have guys speak to the media. I'm sure BYU is the same way. You don't have guys speak to the media that are iffy going into the game. So he should be fine.
Ben, you probably know this better than anyone that covers Stanford, but Stanford's had a lot of success recruiting LDS players and guys from the state of Utah over the years. Is that still going to be the trend, you think, going forward with Andrew Luck and his regime, or is it going to be just focusing more national and try to get guys wherever you can in this era of being in a national conference like Stanford's in the ACC?
Yeah, I think that they're gonna. I mean, I think first of all, for those that kind of don't understand kind of why the LDS thing kind of happened, well, it's kind of funny because I know that a few years back, the Stanford men's basketball team was recruiting. I can't remember who was it. It's not important. There was one of this. He ended up going to Utah. I'm blanking on his name, but he ended up playing for Utah. Really good. He was a really good center from a couple years back, and they were trying to kind of sell him on, hey, like, we've kind of had like LDS, success here. And for basketball, it's pretty much just been Mark Madsen and Nick Robinson, those two. That's kind of it. But for football, there's actually been, as you mentioned, a lot of LDS guys that have come through there. And the reason for that was because former defensive coordinator Lance Anderson, who's now the head coach at Utah Tech, is a member of the church. And so that really kind of helped them recruit guys. As far from the state of Utah and guys that are LDS, as far as whether or not that trend will continue, I do think that just Stanford's strong academic background, I think, and the location and weather and all those things, and also proximity to Utah, still make them a very attractive destination for LDS kids. A lot of kids that end up going to BYU are kids that take their academics really seriously and try to get good grades and are good kids and all that stuff, and kind of check off a lot of the boxes Stanford's looking for. And Stanford's one of the very few schools, if maybe the only school, that's had any success consistently getting kids out of Utah. So I think that trend will continue. The other thing I was going to mention too is that recruiting director Preston Pearson. I know that he has spent a lot of time in Utah. I believe he grew up there, so he's got ties there, and that's something that could help them. So yeah, I think that trend will continue. But certainly with the departure of Anderson now, a few years in the rearview mirror at least, it's fair to wonder how long they'll be able to, if they'll be able to keep it to the same level as was before. But no, I expect them to continue to keep the LDS pipeline coming.
I think that center you were talking about, Brandon Carlson, I believe.
Yes,
that's the name. Yeah.
Brandon Carlson. They took him on a tour of the institute, and they were kind of like, "Yo, we've had like LDS players here," and it was like, for basketball, it's just been Mark Madsen and Nick Robinson. But he's a really, really nice kid. His parents are really nice people, and so. But yeah, Brandon Carlson, that was the guy. Yeah.
A few more moments here with Ben Parker of Cardinal Sports Report on the field for the Stanford team heading into Saturday night. Ben, what is the strength position wise? You can focus on maybe the starters, but just the best positions on this team.
Yeah, right off the bat, running back. The running back unit is really, really deep. They have a really, really good running back room. Micah Ford, the lead back, is really good. Powerful, physical runner. And the other two running backs that we saw against Hawaii, junior Cedric Irvin and sophomore Cole Tab, both looked really good. So I think running back's a major strength of theirs. I think Tight end, in theory, ought to be good. Sam Roush is one of the stars of the team. Now, he had 3 receptions for 6 yards against Hawaii, so it was a bad outing for him, or like not a productive outing at all. But they're expecting him to be a major part of the team. He represented the team at ACC Media Day as a senior and all that. So, you got him and also some other also tight ends like Chico Holt, Benji Blackburn. So the tight end unit's strong. And then I think the linebacker unit as a whole is pretty good. They got some good outside edge rushers like Teva Tafudi, Wifreda Ibar. Inside linebacker group is solid. Guys like Zach Johnson and Bo Tate and Hunter Barth, these guys, and Josiah Galvin, these guys. So there's like, actually the defense has got a lot of pieces. Yeah. And then also secondary too. You mentioned Scotty Edwards, but safeties Jay Green and Mitch Lieber are really solid, are really good. And then cornerback Colin Wright, who's kind of the other kind of major star of this team. If you're playing with Stanford on the NCAA video game, he might be your highest rated player, Colin Wright, and he was out for the Hawaii game. He'll be back. So yeah, those are kind of the main groups where I think.
And then on the flip side, maybe the positions that are the weakest right now heading into week 2.
Yeah, quarterback, obviously, that's a big question mark. The other position group too that I think is a little dodgy question marky is the if that's a word, question marky, the wide receiver unit. So CJ Williams is a transfer from Wisconsin, came in with a lot of hype. He was a big time recruit out of high school, out of modern day high school. But they didn't do a whole. Now, part of it was quarterback play, but also like they could have done better to get themselves open. So wide receiver group, I don't want to say they're a weak spot, but they're kind of more of a mysterious group. You just don't know what you got yet in those guys. CJ Williams, Caden High, CJ Williams, a transfer from Wisconsin, and then Caden High, a transfer from South Carolina State. So guys that are eager to prove themselves, but haven't yet really shown what they can do as a unit. So wide receiver unit, I wouldn't necessarily say is a weak spot, but it's certainly a question mark. They have to prove themselves.
Last thing for you, Ben, if Stanford pulls off the upset, how's the game going to look? How's it going to play out if Stanford's going to pull this thing off?
Yeah, if Stanford pulls off the game, it will be because they won the turnover battle. It's that simple. In other words, if Gulbranson is able to take care of the ball, not turn it over, they're able to establish the run. And then if they're also able to force some turnover. So like if Colin Wright gets an interception, for example, or if Scotty Edwards on a safety blitz, gets a strip sack or something, or Clay Patterson gets a strip sack or major TFL and turnover on downs and doesn't do a stupid dance after, like that kind of thing, right? Like so basically, like they can win the turnover battle, force some turnovers, that and control time of possession, like that's how it's going to happen. So.
Well, one more thing, and also the time of possession, too. I mean, they had 4 drives, more than 10 plays. Do you think that's going to play a role in this, too, if Stanford has a chance to take down BYU?
Yeah, I think they're going to just really try to hope that they can get a lot out of that run game and chew up a lot of clock, and then just get good enough quarterback play. Because I think one of the challenges, as those that know football, you obviously know this, is you don't want to run the ball all the time just because then teams will just stack the box against you. So what got them in trouble was they were trying to on that last interception that really that turned the game against them. They went with a pass play because they were trying to keep Hawaii on their toes and not always go, because Micah Ford was like really kind of I guess you could say exerting his will and dominance over the Hawaii defense, but Stanford decided, and they weren't trying to get too cute or anything. It was just trying to let's mix it up, go the pass play. So no, I think that the hope is establish the run, have another 100-yard game from Ford, and then just have the passing game do its job. So
he's Ben Parker. You can follow him on Cardinal Sports Report, part of On3 Rivals. Does an excellent job covering the Stanford Cardinal, his bylines, and you'll be there in Provo inside the press box. So looking forward to seeing you at the game, Ben, and looking forward to your coverage this weekend.
Appreciate it, Mitch. Thank you so much.
That's Ben Parker. Great stuff from Ben breaking down the Stanford Cardinal, and that will do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I'll be back tomorrow with more breakdown of BYU and Stanford and the latest in BYU sports, all right here on the KSL Sports YouTube, KSL News Radio, and KSLSports.com.